What's good? This is Deontay Carroll, host of Turn Up the Volume podcast. I'm doing something unique today. Just as a disclaimer, well, let me first do this. To say, well, today it's been pressing. There's a lot of history in the Washington, D.C. area. I'm from D.C. I was born and raised southeast and northeast D.C. and there's a lot of rich history in the city. And Frederick Douglass lived here for some time. You have the famous Marion Barry, D.C.'s forever mayor. He was a mayor here, lived here, I believe, up until his death. You have people like actor, comedian Martin Lawrence is from the DC area, DC, Maryland area, Landover. You know, we call it the DMV, the same area, because you can be in DC literally in 1 minute and take a few steps and you'll be in Maryland, in PG County. So today is really unique. I've been having this urgent feeling to do it. I don't know why, but maybe it'll unravel and we'll understand it better by and by, right? So today I'm doing something different. So I am pro-black. I love my people. I love everything about the African-American culture, experience, our race, what we stand for. I understand that we are not a monolithic people. And so this particular video, people may feel different things about it, whatever. But today I'm going to do something very interesting, and that is I'm going to be vlogging the different sites for F.B.I Director, or former F.B.I Director, J. Edgar Hoover. J. Edgar Hoover, I believe, was born January the 1st, I think it was, 1895, if I'm not mistaken, is when he was born. Yep, January 1st, 1895. Interesting thing about Hoover is he never had a birth certificate up until the age of 43, I think, when his mother passed away. And so he went a great deal of his life without a birth certificate. One was not filled out. He had one for his siblings. His siblings had one, but he didn't have one for whatever reason. He was born and raised here in DC. He lived here up until the time of his death. And this cemetery over here, Congressional Cemetery, is where he's buried. I've been driven past this cemetery for years as a kid. By my grandparents, my mother, we all lived in DC. And I never knew anything about the cemetery until I did my homework. The F.B.I building, the J. Edgar Hoover headquarters, is here in D.C. I'm going to try to get there too. African Americans, we have many different views about J. Edgar Hoover, depending on who you are and what your politics is. Just to be clear, disclaimer, I'm not under no circumstances a J. Edgar Hoover fan. I'm not a groupie of J. Edgar Hoover. I've actually, if truth be told, I had some feelings about coming here several months ago because I was watching some things on some documentaries about Dr. Martin Luther King and other people where they talked about J. Edgar Hoover, and you know, and J. Edgar Hoover is a part of history, whether we like him or not, whether we appreciate him or not, you know, whether we hate him or not. He's a part of history. He's a part of the fabric and the quilt of this culture. And a lot of history has gone with this man. You know, a lot of things have gone on. He was 29 when he became the director of the F.B.I, or which was, I think, back then the Bureau of Investigation. It was the original F.B.I was housed in the Department of Justice downtown in Washington, D.C. And they didn't even have arresting powers initially, right? And so now when J. Edgar Hoover, by the time he becomes the director of the F.B.I, the Bureau at that time was so corrupt, like it wasn't corrupt after he got a hold of and did what he did, right? But he rose to fame quite fast. Like he kind of made this stereotype of an FBI agent where you had to be young, you know, I don't want to say not so much young, but you know, you had to be in some ways, in his words, intelligent. You had to be able to fight. You had to be able to be filled with integrity and all these other kind of things. He had a model of what he wanted in the FBI agent, and so he rose to fame, rose to power very fast, and you know, he just went down his history as the longest reigning FBI director. It wasn't until after he died where Congress made it a law that an FBI director can only serve no more than 10 years as a director of the FBI because of the things that he did that were unethical. I mean, he was so vicious to where he understood for him what would hold him in power for so long, to the point to where presidents were afraid of him. I'm talking John F. Kennedy, you know, Lyndon Johnson, Richard Nixon. He had intel on everybody, like their private life, the things that they did, you know, and this is why John F. Kennedy never got rid of him as FBI director, because Hoover had files on his adulterous affairs when he was in the military and things of that nature. And he had a black book supposedly on different members of Congress. And so when he would go before Congress to get things that he wanted, or go before folk to get things that he wanted, he had a black book supposedly, as history tells us, where he had different things about different congressmen and senators and things of this nature. And so another interesting fact is he had a lot of files supposedly hidden in his home, where the day he died, his secretary, I think her name is Helen Graney, I think that's her name, supposedly she destroyed all the files that were not filed in the FBI office but were filed in his personal residence. And these files supposedly consisted of things on different individuals that would ruin families, shatter careers, and like, he was a vicious individual. When you do your homework on J. Edgar Hoover, he was so vicious. And he was never married. He died at age 77, I think May 2nd, 1972. He died in his home, which I'm going to try to get some footage of that. He died at his home. And the interesting thing about it is, when he died, his estate was left to Clyde Tolson. Clyde Tolson was second in command at the FBI, but there's some speculation, rumors that J. Edgar Hoover was gay. He was a cross-dresser. There was footage, some pictures supposedly of him in women's lingerie or clothing with wigs on, makeup, and he was engaging in some type of orgy and all these other kind of things. If you do your homework, you'll find that out. But supposedly Clyde Tolson was not only his second in command at the Federal Bureau of Investigation, but supposedly Clyde Tolson was also his lover, right? Now, mind you, J. Edgar Hoover was homophobic and, you know, hated homosexuals and thought that they had some major, you know, he just thought that they were going to do some things to the country. His logic and his mindset, you know. But anyway, and so Clyde Tolson, when J. Edgar Hoover died, he left majority of his estate to Clyde Tolson. Make any kind of, you know, conclusions you want to make with that. I think at the time his estate was estimated up into about $551,500. I think his estate totaled up that much, and all of that was left to Clyde Tolson. His house that he died in was left to Clyde Tolson. He had nieces and nephews and those, some people, I think relatives that were named after him. He didn't leave a lot of them anything, barely anything. And I think if Tolson passed, then, you know, he would have, I think he had willed it to some other charities or something, not even a family. So J. Edgar Hoover is an individual. The headquarters here in DC is named after him. And so yeah, let's just go check some of this stuff out. And also in the cemetery, I think Clyde Tolson is buried not too far away in the same cemetery, like probably a couple of feet away in the same cemetery. So you can make all kind of, you know, conclusions about that whole thing in terms of his relationship with Clyde Tolson. But let's try to check some of this stuff out. Here we are. Congressional Cemetery. I ain't too much of a fan going in here because they let dogs in here, so I don't know. All right, so I'm here at Congressional Cemetery. It's not too bad to find. When you walk in, you take the brick road path, make a left at the trash cans, and here's, I don't know if you can see, it's the only one with the fence. The guy told me, very nice gentleman, African American guy, told me where to find it. He said J. Edgar Hoover's grave was the only one that had a fence around it over here. So here is J. Edgar Hoover's grave. Let y'all see this. See what I see. Ain't this something? Have the Federal Bureau of Investigation seal. And I think this is his mother, some relatives, father, and he's buried here, under here somewhere. Yep, this is where J. Edgar Hoover is buried. So look, I want to show this. So this is where J. Edgar Hoover is buried, right there. Now, if you walk this same brick road, not too far away, this is where Clyde Tolson is buried, who was the lover, allegedly, supposedly, of J. Edgar Hoover. How ironic that the man who was given his estate after Hoover passed, this is where he's buried. Literally, if you wanted to say down the street from Hoover, he's buried down the street from Hoover. Clyde Anderson Tolson was his name, though. Lover, according to history, according to rumors, and according to many different people, of J. Edgar Hoover. How does it feel being here, seeing J. Edgar Hoover's grave, knowing the things he tried to get Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., encourage him to commit suicide? He's responsible, from what I understand, of the murder, or supposedly, I think he's responsible of the murder for, what is it, Fred Hampton? Just crazy being here. For what? And it's interesting, look at that, the seal. Fidelity, bravery, and integrity. Yet, J. Edgar Hoover was so contrary to all of that. Yep. This is it. This is it. I don't even want to sit on this. I don't even want to sit here because I just don't. Yep, but this is where he's buried. This is where he's buried. Now the gentleman told me there's Clyde Tolson's grave there, the orangish looking headstone. But the gentleman also told me, he said, if you walk further down, he said you'll see the grave of DC Mayor Marion Barry. And so he knows where he works, he knows his job. Because surely enough, this is where the great Marion Barry has been laid to rest. So here it is, the grave of Marion Barry. Beautiful headstone. I remember when he died, one of his viewings was at the Temple of Praise where I used to go to church. And it looks like his son is actually buried here too. His son died 2 years after he did, just about. Marion Christopher Barry. As you can see his name there. I don't know if this will be the only individuals who will be laid to rest here, but here's what his grave looks like. Read that part, I can't really see because of the sun, but you know. And so yeah, this is where Marion Barry's buried. Right here by the tree, in between two trees actually. Right down the street from J. Edgar Hoover. At the front of the gate, I'm like, I saw this, Is this where Reverend Willie Wilson is going to be buried? He was the senior pastor of Union Temple Baptist Church. So maybe they've already picked out their plots. I don't know. But this is also at Congressional Cemetery, right here at the entrance. Once you walk in the entrance, that's it right there. Yep. Y'all want to know something so interesting? Congressional Cemetery is up the street from DC jail. Isn't that interesting? All right, so we are at, well, I'm in my car right now, but we are at 413 Seward Square, Southeast Washington, D.C. And this is the birth location for the birth home that J. Edgar Hoover was born and raised in 59, 95? One of the two. But, little known fact, his house does not exist anymore. His house has been replaced by Capitol Hill United Methodist Church. This is the grounds in which J. Edgar Hoover was born and raised in. His house does not exist anymore, but this is where his house would have been had it still existed. So I'm going to walk on around so you all can see it. And I did not know this. I did not know this until I started to do my homework on J. Edgar Hoover to see exactly, or to find rather, the locations of like his gravesite, his homes where he lived. I did not know that, like I said, I was born and raised in DC. I was born in DC General Hospital in the early 90s, 91. That doesn't exist anymore. I did not know. Every day, my grandfather would drive down Pennsylvania Avenue, sometimes drive down the street, pick up my grandmother who worked for the Department of State before it was relocated to its current location. And I've always seen this church here, but I never knew this was the spot where J. Edgar Hoover once lived. This is where his childhood home would have been. So yep, so here's a greater picture. Yep. This is where J. Edgar Hoover grew up, was born in the house that once stood here. And so now it's a church. There it is, people. The J. Edgar Hoover FBI building. It's a big building. I had a family member who worked here for many years of my life. I've been inside as a kid, and my relative would always tell me, well, I remember one time when I was a kid, I said, who is J. Edgar Hoover? Because that was the name of the building, and they had a name out there. And she would always tell me, she said, yeah, J. Edgar Hoover was not a nice man. And she worked for the FBI back in the 90s. She said he was not a nice man. He did a lot of dirty things to people. However, they still named this building after him, the headquarters. And I think it was maybe not long after he passed. Was it 2 days after he passed, I believe, that they said that it was said that they were going to name the headquarters the J. Edgar Hoover FBI building, you know, headquarters building. And like I said, prior to that, they were housed in the Department of Justice. So this is the building here, guys. Just want you all to see it. Try to find some parking so I can get out. Just really quickly find some parking. So this is another view of the J. Edgar Hoover FBI building. I'm trying to get out, but I can't really find parking. But this is where they named the headquarters after him. So try to find some parking, like I said at the end. Yep, here it is. J. Edgar Hoover FBI building. This would have been the front of the building, I believe. Let's see if I can park here. Just briefly get out. J. Edgar Hoover FBI building. Yep. And this is where the headquarters was named after him. Yeah. It's very interesting because when I think back about history, I say, how can a society name a building after a man that does so much unintegral, unethical, non-moral things to people in the government, blackmailing people and, you know, trying to take down people of color. You know, it makes me feel some kind of way, but I guess then again, I'm not surprised because this is America. And it's only in America where we celebrate insurrectionists, terrorists that belong and come from this country. I know I'm going to have some folks that's going to turn the video off at this point because I said what I said, but you know, it's only in America where we celebrate those who do vile things a lot of times. And naming an FBI headquarters after a man, such a man, is one of those things, you know? But this is it. FBI headquarters. That's it. It's a big old building. I'll probably put another video in showing, you know, the building look like, in a big hole of a building, like the greater span of the building. I'll probably show a video or put a picture in terms of what it looked like, what it looks like, you know, so you all will see it. But yeah, this is the J. Edgar Hoover FBI building. Yep. Last stop, the last house that he lived. All right, good people. So we are here, 30th place, Northwest. So J. Edgar Hoover's last house was literally all the way uptown Northwest. He lived in a good neighborhood where wealthy folk lived or live still to this day. I'm not going to be here long because, you know, racism is real, prejudice is real. And, you know, I'm just sitting in the trunk of my car, so I won't look all suspicious. Racism is real, prejudice is real. And, you know, being a person of color in Northwest sometimes can make you feel uncomfortable. I'll just put it that way. But he lived here in Northwest 30th place. Nice home. I'm not sure who owns the home to this day. I do know, like I said earlier, Clyde Tolson, who was the second man in charge. I think he was like the assistant director. I can't remember his role or title at the FBI. He and Hoover allegedly always went to lunch together most days. They drove to work together most days. They vacationed every year together. And so this house, which is to my left, probably your right, depending on how you look at this video, and depending on how it comes out, this was the home that J. Edgar Hoover owned, and this is the home that he died in. This home here. You see it? Take a picture. Last home of J. Edgar Hoover. And so, like I said, he lived in this home. He died in this home, and he died in his bedroom, face down on the floor. And he had so many documents from people on people, or what have you, that his secretary, who worked for him over 40-some years, came and, you know, destroyed those documents. You know, and not only did she destroy those documents, but it is said that when the undertakers came to get J. Edgar Hoover's body, they saw a bunch of men in suits, like kind of combing the house from top to bottom, just going through everything, you know. And so, I don't know. It's crazy being here. It's a lot of history in DC, like I said. A lot of history. And so, there's the home. I'm going to get out of here before somebody try to call the police. I don't know what that is down there. I don't know what that is. Somebody probably famous lived there. I don't know. But this is a nice neighborhood, historic houses, you know. Yep, and that was J. Edgar Hoover's home. That's the home that he died in. Up here in Northwest DC. Home is not that far from Howard University, UDC, Van Ness Street. You have to go past, on Connecticut Avenue, you have to go past the zoo, actually, to get to his house. So he lived somewhere that was very prominent. A lot of wealthy people live in this neighborhood. So, you know, you might not find a lot of people of color, my complexion, living in this neighborhood, which kind of makes me uncomfortable because sometimes, you know, and I'm only telling you all this because of the experiences that people of color have to go through. Sometimes if you don't look like you live here, you know, people can call the police on you and things of that nature. So that's why I'm not spending too much time out here, because I don't got time for that today. You know, I don't got time for it, bottom line. But yep, but this is the home where he lived. It doesn't look, it looks like somebody keeps it up, but it doesn't look all occupied, if you ask me. It doesn't look, the windows looks like some of the blinds are up, so I can't really see it. I'm not about to go on a property, private property. You know, it'll just be my luck, right? But yeah, this is where he lived. I don't know if the family still owns the home now, or if Clyde Tolson passed it down to somebody else. But supposedly, J. Edgar Hoover died on May 2nd, 1972. Clyde Tolson died in 75. So I'm not too sure between those couple of years, about three, almost 4 years, how he arranged things in terms of property and assets and the estate to be handled and passed down. So I don't know. But yeah, so this was his last home. J. Edgar Hoover's last home. He lived here for many years. He lived here for many, many, many years. So, the fabric of this country is something else, to be honest. But yeah. Y'all, something interesting just happened to me. So I was out there filming J. Edgar Hoover's house, right? Right across the street, there was a lady that lived across the street from J. Edgar Hoover's house. She was a white woman, very, very, very nice. And she gave me some information about the street. She said this was back in J. Edgar Hoover's time. She's been living here about 16 years, she said. I hope I'm not giving too much of her information. But she said she's been living here about 16 years. When she moved there, she realized that her realtor told her the house across the street from her was J. Edgar Hoover's house. Somebody does live there, so it is owned by somebody else. And she said the movie J. Edgar, which Leonardo DiCaprio played J. Edgar Hoover, she said part of the movie was filmed in that house. So that was actually a film location for J. Edgar Hoover, or the J. Edgar movie. And she told me something very interesting that you might not have known. So right down the street from J. Edgar Hoover's house, right across the street, about 3 houses down, was the house where President Lyndon Johnson lived, where he was senator. And that house is right here. Senator, at the time, Senator Lyndon Baines Johnson lived in this house when he was senator, before he became president. A lot of rich history on this street, you know, people, prominent people living in this area, in this neighborhood. But that's the house where former President Lyndon Baines Johnson lived before he became president, when he was a senator. So hope y'all have enjoyed today's videos, a little bit of vlogging, doing some different things. I'm an interesting person, podcast host, but I like vlogs and looking at film locations and things of that nature. Important places to view. If you look at my page, you see I've been to the MLK historic site in Georgia. I want to do Frederick Douglass, like an official vlog in the Frederick Douglass's home, because you can't film on the inside, but you can take pictures, I think. And so, yeah, I like vlogging. I like stuff like this too, along with other things. So I hope you enjoy. Click the share button, tag, like, subscribe, all that stuff. Turn up the volume podcast. Y'all be good to yourselves and be well. I'm Deontay Carroll. I'm out. What's happening? This is Deontay Carroll, host of Turn Up the Volume podcast. Listen, do me a favor. If you like this video, do yourself a favor and hit the subscribe button. Also, tap the bell and turn on all of your notifications to see this and more interviews and more shows from my podcast right here on my YouTube page. So y'all hit that like button, tag, share, and subscribe. Y'all be good.